The Fourth Skanda, Volume 8, Chapter 2, Sutra. Ananda, you should know that as a cultivator sits in the Buddhimanda, he is doing away with all thoughts. When his thoughts come to an end, there will be nothing on his mind. This state is pure clarity, will stay the same whether in movement or stillness, in remembrance or forgetfulness. Commentary. Ananda, you should know that as a cultivator sits in the Buddhimanda, he is doing away with all thoughts. Ananda, you should know that you are simply cultivating the skill of turning back your hearing to listen to your inherent nature. In that way, you obliterate all thoughts. When his thoughts come to an end, there will be nothing on his mind. This state of pure clarity, this wisdom and samadhi power will stay the same whether in movement or stillness, in remembrance or forgetfulness. Your mind does not change whether you are moving or still, whether you are mindful or absent-minded. Your state is the same, it is non-dual. Sutra. When he dwells in this place and enters samadhi, he is like a person with clear vision who finds himself in total darkness. Although his nature is wonderfully pure, his mind is not yet illuminated. This is the region of the fourth skanda. Commentary. When he dwells in this place and enters samadhi, Ananda, when he cultivates samadhi power and resides in a state of purity that remains the same whether he is moving or still, mindful or forgetful, he is like a person with clear vision who finds himself in total darkness. He is like a person with good eyes who is living in a dark house. Although his nature is wonderfully pure, his mind is not yet illuminated. Although his nature is pure, bright, and wondrous, his mind has not yet attained the light of genuine wisdom. This is the region of the fourth skanda. Sutra. If his eyes become clear, he will then experience the 10 directions as an open expanse, and the darkness will be gone. This is the end of the fourth skanda. He will then be able to transcend the turbidity of compass. Contemplating the cause of the fourth skanda, one sees that false thoughts of solidity are its source. Commentary. If his eyes become clear, he will then experience the 10 directions as an open expanse, and the darkness will be gone. What is this state called? This is the end of the fourth skanda. Of the 5 skandhas, form, feeling, thinking, formations, and consciousness, the fourth skanda is gone. He will then be able to transcend the turbidity of compass. Contemplating the cause of fourth skanda of the fourth skanda, one sees that false thoughts of solidity are its source. When the person goes beyond the turbidity of compass, his actions will be based on false thoughts of solidity. December the 2nd, 1993. Disciple. When the fourth skanda comes to an end, this person can then transcend the turbidity of compass. Contemplating the cause of the fourth skanda, he sees that false thoughts of solidity are its source. Venerable Master, he still has false thoughts. They are solid because he is too deeply attached to that state. Disciple. Are false thoughts of solidity the source of the fourth skanda? Venerable Master, that's how it is when he reaches that state. It is not a matter of whether or not something is the source. There's no way to get to the root of it. This is all false. Form, feeling, thinking, formations, and consciousness are all like this. The 5 skandhas, like floating clouds, emptily come and go. The 3 poisons, like air bubbles in water, rise and disappear. They are unreal. Every state is false. Disciple, it's just like a dream. You can't make any sense out of dreams. Venerable Master, yes, in a dream, the 6 destinies clearly exist. After awakening, everything is empty and the universe is gone. Sutra Ananda at this point, as the person intently investigates that wondrous brightness, the four elements will no longer function together, and soon the body will be able to transcend obstructions. This state is called the pure brightness merging into the environment. It is a temporary state in the course of cultivation and that does not indicate sagehood. If he does not think he has become a sage, then this will be a good state, but if he considers himself a sage, then he will be vulnerable to the demon's influence. Commentary. We are now discussing the demons associated with the five skandhas: form, feeling, thinking, formations, and consciousness. There are 10 kinds of demons for each of the skandhas, making a total of 50. Cultivators should have a clear understanding of these 50 types of demons. If you are not clear about these states, you could easily end up in the Demon King's retinue, and you won't even know how you got there. That's why you have to be especially careful. Ananda at this point, as the person intently investigates that wondrous brightness when the form skandha is about to end, he experiences the 10 directions opening up and perceives a kind of brightness. As he investigates that state of subtle wonder and brightness, the four elements will no longer function together, and soon the body will be able to transcend obstructions. The four elements will cease to function normally, and very soon after that, the body will become free of obstructions, just like empty space. This is known as the body produced by intent. It is another body that can leave the physical body. Earlier, I mentioned my disciple who went to the heavens in his Dharma body, which is also the body produced by intent. The intent refers to the mind, one of the six sense faculties. Such a body, being a creation of the mind, is able to transcend obstructions. This state is called the pure brightness merging into the environment. The pure light flows into the surrounding environment. December the 2nd, 1993. Disciple. This state is called the pure brightness merging into the environment. How is this sentence explained? Venerable Master. This means that the person is too smart. He has false intelligence and worldly wisdom. He is simply too clever. Disciple. What does the environment refer to? It refers to the state mentioned earlier. Is it the state that occurs when he is working at cultivation? Venerable Master is simply the state he attained previously. It is a temporary state in the course of cultivation. This kind of skill is temporary. It will not last. It is different from being able to come and go wherever you please. With that kind of complete freedom, one can let it go and it feels the six directions, roll it up, and it secretly hides away. If one lets it go, it fills the universe, and yet one can gather it back in at any time. If you cannot do this whenever you want, then yours is only a temporary skill. It's a state that you may encounter when you reach a certain level in your cultivation. However, this state is temporary. You won't always have a body that transcends obstructions, and so it does not indicate sagehood. You have not reached the fruition of a sage. This isn't what it's like when a sage realizes the fruition. If he does not think he has become a sage, then this will be a good state. That is, you don't say, "Oh, I truly have some skill in my cultivation. I can actually send a body out through the top of my head." If you become arrogant like that, what happens? It's all over you. However, if you don't interpret this state as proof that you have attained to sagehood, then this state is no great hindrance. There is nothing particularly wrong with it. But if he considers himself a sage, then he will be vulnerable to the demon's influence. You might say, "Oh, my skill is extraordinary. I'm fantastic. I'm a sage who has transcended the world. I'm an arhat." If you think that way, the demons will descend upon you. Once the demons come, you are headed for a fall into the hells. Sutra. Further, Ananda, as the person uses his mind to intently investigate that wondrous light, the light will pervade his body. Suddenly, he will be able to extract intestinal worms from his own body, yet his body will remain intact and unharmed. This state is called the pure light surging through one's physical body. It is a temporary state in the course of intense practice and does not indicate sagehood. If he does not think he has become a sage, then this will be a good state. But if he considers himself a sage, then he will be vulnerable to the demon's influence. Commentary. This is the second demonic state of the form skandha. These demonic states are brought about by your vigorous effort in cultivation. If you were not working hard, you could not attract such demonic states even if you wanted to. The demons would pay no attention to you. In their eyes, you would be just another poor person and they would obtain no advantage in coming after you. But now, since you've been cultivating, you will master some treasures, and that's what the demons are after. What should you do when they come? You have to remain in a state of unmoving searchiness and clear understanding. Do not become attached to appearances. Have no attachments at all. Do not think, "What a fine state, I'd like to experience it again." Don't welcome it and don't reject it. Just act as if nothing were happening. If you do not consider yourself a sage, then it is a good state. But if you think you are a sage and you say, "Wow, I'm incredible, I can pull parasites out of my body." If you decide you've obtained spiritual powers and self-mastery, then you've made a mistake. With that one thought of arrogance, the demons come. Riding on that thought of arrogance, they bore into your mind and take over. They manipulate you until you have no samadhi power left. Therefore, you have to truly understand the principles of cultivation. Only then can you keep from falling into a trap or going down the wrong road. If you don't understand the Buddha Dharma, it is very easy to go astray. There is no problem if you do not have any real skill, but when you gain some skill, the demon kings will have their eyes on you every moment, and the first opportunity they see, they will come to disturb you. Further, Ananda, as the person uses his mind to intently investigate that wondrous brightness, the light will pervade his body. If you persist in your cultivation, you will eventually be able to see everything inside your own body. It's one thing if you are always able to see like that, but if you only have this ability once in a while, then it is merely a state of a form skandha. Suddenly, he will be able to extract intestinal forms from his own body, yet his body will remain intact and unharmed. In this state, suddenly you can pull worms out of your own abdomen. There are long worms and short ones, big ones and small ones. You can just reach your hand in and pluck them out. The extracted worms are real and yet there's no injury to the abdomen. How do you suppose they came out? If you reach your hand into the abdomen to pull out the worms, the abdomen should be injured, but there is no rupture at all. His body will remain intact. Could be explained in two ways. One way would be to change the translation to read "their bodies will remain intact" and say that the worms' bodies are still intact, not the least damaged. They are whole and complete, alive and healthy. You could also say that your abdomen is intact and uninjured. This state is called the pure light surging through one's physical body. An extremely pure and brilliant light penetrates your body. You do not actually put your hand in the abdomen and pluck the worms out. They issue forth of themselves. It is a temporary state in the course of intense practice and does not indicate sagehood. This state is not something that happens all the time. If this were a perpetual state, the situation would be different. This is not the state of a sage. If he does not think he has become a sage, then this will be a good state. It is fine. It won't cause any great trouble. But if he considers himself a sage, then he will be vulnerable to the demon's influence. If you say, I've attained sagehood, I can take things out of my stomach, isn't it wonderful? You don't have such a state. If you become arrogant and attached to your state, you are in for trouble. You will be dragged off by the demon king to become part of his retinue. Sutra. Further, as the person uses his mind to intently investigate inside and outside, his physical and spiritual souls, intellect, will, essence, and spirit will be able to interact with one another without affecting his body. They will take turns as host and guests. Then he may suddenly hear the Dharma being spoken in space, or perhaps he will hear esoteric truths being pronounced simultaneously throughout the 10 directions. This state is called the essence and souls alternately separating and uniting, and the planting of good seeds. It is a temporary state and does not indicate sagehood. If he does not think he has become a sage, then this will be a good state. But if he considers himself a sage, then he will be vulnerable to the demon's influence. Commentary. Further, as the person uses his mind to intently investigate the wondrous brightness inside and outside, striving to exceed excellence, incessantly trying to refine that process, his spiritual and physical souls undergo a change. There are 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls residing in the human body. I have mentioned these 10 brothers before. Some of them have only ears or only eyes. Some have merely a nose but no lips, eyes, or ears. Each of them possesses only one sense organ and lacks the other 5, so they cannot function on their own. They must work cooperatively as a team. Those with ears help out those lacking ears. Those with eyes helping out those lacking eyes. They depend on and help one another.